Wow, didn't I luck out after so much bad luck?
It was early April 2025, and we came to Nova Scotia to cycle as much of the Trans-Canada Trail as we could, focusing on the 435-kilometer stretch across the peninsula from Denmark to Brooklyn. This ride covers one part of that journey, the Rum Runners Trail, a 100-kilometer rail trail connecting Halifax to Mahone Bay. But the snow had piled in overnight, deep enough to delay us for several days, so instead of riding, we wandered, and Peggy's Cove, quiet under a fresh snowfall, was one of the most beautiful detours we could have hoped for. This is Mi'kmaq, the ancestral and unceded territory of the Mi'kmaq, who have lived in relation to these lands since time immemorial. Today, Peggy's Cove is an active fishing village and home to the Peggy's Point Lighthouse, one of the most photographed in Canada. But on this day, we were nearly alone. Granite headlands were dusted in white, the ocean restless and roaring, and the air still carried the bite of winter. Salt marshes and small inland ponds dotted the moor, and the scattered boulders of this rocky heath were catching the light. Down by a small pier, film noir waterfront scene unfolded, where seawater encrusts the pilings and the air hangs thick with moisture and poetic melancholy. 4 doves lurked on barnacled slippery rocks, 2 watching while the other 2 squabbled and flailed like they just stumbled out of a waterfront tavern. It was all wings and melodrama though, nobody got hurt. The village streets have names like Lobster Lane and Seagull Lane, small details but perfect in their way. No artists with easels today, just the wind, the sea, and us. We weren't riding yet, but we were definitely exploring. When the snow finally melted, we set out. We're Maddie and Harry, and this is the second of 5 trail videos from our spring cycling trip on the Nova Scotia Peninsula. The Rum Runners Trail is part of the Canadian Trail System and one of the few long continuous rail trails in the region. No highways, just quiet paths, small towns, and a surprise ending involving an ATV. The name dates back to Prohibition, when smugglers ran liquor up and down this coast. The route includes 7 locally named segments from the Chain of Lakes Trail near Halifax to the Bay to Bay Trail into Lunenburg. We didn't ride that last section, it's not part of the Trans-Canada Trail map, but we covered the rest, through forest, coastline, lakes, and a few detours. We'll start at the beginning. We started across from the Atlantic Superstore on Joseph Howe Drive, a practical spot to unload the bikes and organize our gear. From there, a paved off-road path runs alongside the busy road, leading to the trailhead of the Chain of Lakes Trail. It's not marked on the Trans-Canada Trail map, but we were happy to find a place to park and reach the trail safely. The Chain of Lakes Trail is Halifax's longest paved multi-use pathway and the first leg of the Rum Runners Trail. It runs along the city's edge on a former railway and, true to its name, crosses 5 lakes as well as pockets of woodlands and glimpses of homes and business parks. We passed joggers, cyclists, dog walkers, and families with strollers, and noticed that the path is wheelchair accessible. It wasn't crowded the day we rode it, early in the day and early in the season, but it can get busy, so a bell and good trail etiquette are encouraged. There are benches, wooden guardrails, and frequent lake views tucked between the trees. Rock cuts and the long straight path with no noticeable elevation changes are reminders of its rail line past. This section runs for about 7 kilometers, with kilometer markers along the way, and ends in Lakeside, where the pavement gives way to stone dust and the BLT trail begins.
Turn left onto Beachville Park Drive.
If you enjoy following the Trans-Canada Trail with us, or wonder what Atlantic Canada is really like, feel free to like or subscribe. We're heading toward Mahone Bay, though this ride doesn't quite end the way we expected. From Lakeside, we rolled straight onto the BLT trail, the Beachville Lakeside Timberley stretch of the Rum Runners route. At 13 kilometers, it's a gentle ride on stone dust and packed gravel, curving past lakes, streams, and quiet woodlands. Like its sandwich namesake, BLT has all the essentials: shady benches, little bridges over creeks, and lake views. It's tidy and well loved, thanks to a crew of volunteers whose unseen work has created a most welcoming trail. We passed through groves of white birch, their trunks silver in the morning light, and we sailed across narrow causeways with water shimmering on either side. Below, spring peepers called from the reeds, their chorus rising through the hush. It was peaceful, not without signs of life. Village homes peeked through the bare branches, and in the distance, yellow school buses rolled past like bright little promises of a day beginning. One stretch took us under a double underpass, and just beyond it, a bench of beautifully aging stone, resting in the shade as though it has always belonged there. The trail runs close to St. Margaret's Bay Road, with regular access points and quiet places to pause. It's mixed use, so we did meet an ATV or two, polite, slow, and no trouble at all. They passed with a wave, but I'll admit, something about the hum of the engine on this old smuggler's route left me a little wistful, a trace of motor-happy mischief drifting through the pines. There were puddles and a few potholes near the end, but nothing to spoil the ride. If anything, they added a dash of playfulness. The kind of small adventure that makes you feel 10 years old again and pedaling through springtime. This section ends where the BLT gives way to the St. Margaret's Bay Trail, and the journey continues. The Rum Runners Trail crosses St. Margaret's Bay Road in the Hubbly and Lewis Lake area and marks the end of the BLT Trail and the beginning of the St. Margaret's Bay Trail. This next stretch runs 33 kilometers, tracing the old railway line along the coast. It's a mix of woodlands, quiet bays, and elevated views where trains once rolled through fishing villages on their way to Halifax. Near Hubbards Mill Lake, the trail skirts a heath bog, acidic, peaty ground rich with mosses, sedges, and tiny sundews built to catch insects. Rare in Canada. Beside the heath, a wooden bench, a quiet invitation to linger. This trail feels expansive. Rail corridors can sometimes feel like we're gliding down a green hallway with no doors. The trail opens wide here, with long views to the bay. Benches offer a place to pause, interpretive panels do their best to teach us something, and little trail posts point to coffee, bathrooms, and other small mercies. One panel near Boudelier Point marks the old St. James Anglican Church, built in 1846, decades before Canada was even a country. We pass the Bike and Bean Cafe, housed in the old French Village train station built around 1901, now serving lattes and bike rentals where passengers once waited for the train. Then we crossed a freshly built overpass with a stunning view, but it's best not to let the scenery steal your focus. Just off the bridge and around the bend, a crevice cut deep across the trail, likely carved by snowmelt or heavy rain.
Whoa.
You might spot fine print at the top of some clips. That's just me keeping track of locations while editing. It's small on purpose so it doesn't trample the scenery or the story. With some clips as short as 2 seconds, it's easy to miss. But if you're curious, you can always hit pause and have a look. Farther on, the new path ended. Construction crews were already at work, digging up the old rail bed. One kind worker walked with us for a stretch, pointing out blocked culverts like a detective, tracing water's recent mischief. Even now, stretches of the trail are complete, lined with new benches, peaceful woods, and smooth paths just waiting for the generations of walkers, cyclists, and other trail enthusiasts who will pass this way next. Near Queensland, we dipped south for a moment, drawn by the blue on our GPS. Waves rolled onto a rocky beach, a breath of ocean air before we returned to the path. We rode on through sun and cloud, bundled in winter coats and heading towards Hubbards. This wasn't the easiest stretch to film or to ride, but it's a trail with a future, and we were glad to catch it in this moment of change and renewal. The St. Margaret's Bay Trail ends near Hubbards, and the Aspatagan Trail begins. 12 inland kilometers still tracing the old rail line that once linked Halifax to Mahone Bay and beyond. The trailhead is quiet, gravel pull-off, picnic table, and a yellow gate that narrows the path, keeping out cars but letting ATVs pass, and maybe swinging wide for emergency crews when needed. My bike sat near an ATV, the two looking like old friends in the April sun. One bend opened onto what looked like an oxbow lake, an old river's quiet echo barely moving, like a memory left behind. Houses peeked out now and again between the trees. There aren't many signs until the end. Just before East River, a tall kiosk appears, not with fanfare, but with a quiet certainty. One trail ends, and the Chester Connector begins. The Rum Runners Trail crosses Highway 3 at East River and becomes the Chester Connector, 34 inland kilometers, passing forests, rivers, and lakes, stretching all the way to Martin's River. Right out of the gate, we crossed East River on a weathered wooden bridge, followed by a Highway 103 underpass where tree clearing had left things a little raw around the edges. Labrador Lake showed up on our left, all stillness and early light. We passed the trailhead for Castle Rock, one of those tempting detours I wasn't packed for. The sign promised dramatic elevation and a sweeping coastal view, which sounded exactly right and completely out of reach. I had half a water bottle and the wrong shoes. Some hikes are better left for another day, with more snacks. Later, I slowed beside Henneberry Lake. Frogs, maybe birds, I wasn't sure who was singing, but someone was having a good day. The trail brushes the edge of Chester, where we pass the Visitors Information Center. Closed when we arrived, but open most other times. The town itself goes back to 1759, with stories of sailing, swimming, and stage plays under the stars. On a livelier day, you might catch a concert in the park or a keelboat race in the harbor. We carried on along Walker Cut Road. From there, a quick glimpse of Mill Cove opened up below us, unexpected and perfectly framed by bare trees. We crossed the halfway river bridge, then rolled past Croft Road, where Chester keeps a little outdoor gym tucked beside the trail. 5 stations for a full body workout, should you feel compelled. Near Gold River, the trail bridge was closed, barricaded off. We detoured around it and rejoined the trail a few minutes later. Somewhere near Bomer Road, ATVs buzzed past, full of spring energy. Just before the trail changes names again, we reached Martin's River. The bridge gave us a clear view over the lighthouse route, glinting off the water. Crossing into the Dynamite Trail felt, well, a little explosive in spirit if not in speed. Just 7 kilometers remained on the Rum Runners route. I'd made it through over 100. What was 7 more? The trail skirted high tide art and the Narrows Basin. Beautiful spots, though hard to film with the sun glaring straight into my lens. There really are canoes hanging from the trees, I promise. They're just lost in the shadows in my footage. Then, the bridge over Narrows Basin. Then, a hiss. Then, a flat tire. I phoned Harry and told him I'd walk my bike half a kilometer to the Oakland Road parking lot. He said he'd meet me there, which he did, though not before chatting up some ATV drivers, who to my surprise offered to drive me to the finish line. And that's how I arrived at Old Trunk Road. Less a gentle roll into the next chapter, more like being shot out of a cannon in a woodland version of Mr. Toad's Wild Ride, which was a manic driving scene from the old British children's book The Wind in the Willows. Not what I expected, but undeniably fun.
Yes. See if I can get that.
This trail was a gift from the careful hands that built it, the artists who shaped the views, and the employees and volunteers who keep it rolling. It lets the rest of us wander through something that feels, at times, like a living group of 7 painting. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you again very soon.